Hi everybody, it's been announced that Simona is officially coming at the end of the Edda debut banner. So looking at that timeline, it looks like she'll be coming on the 30th, basically the end of the month. And I thought I'd take a quick look at her from a light to medium spending perspective. And looking at that, what I mean by light to medium spender is someone that buys both the monthly pass and the battle pass. But I also consider, and my plans, I mean this is specifically my plans within this game, is to buy both of the monthlies. So we had the first one that was a minus the 54% off monthly 20 summon chest, as well as the other monthly that gives 20 pulls for 1,680. And I think when I've done the math, it's equivalent to about 50 to 60 bucks a month if you're getting the passes and both these packs every month. So if you think about it from a medium spending standpoint, about $60 a month. And then if there's ever a unit that I really want, I am also willing to buy up to all of the top-ups at some point. But my goal is to hopefully not need to. And then if they work like many other gotchas, then if they're going to reset on an anniversary, then I'll probably buy all of them before the anniversary. So just kind of looking at it from that perspective, I've done the math, and it comes out, I believe, based on the current estimates, to around a little over 100 pulls a month on average is what I'm looking at. And that's just on the normal, so just the normal amounts you get. That doesn't include the events and stuff, so it actually could be a little bit more than that. But coming from that perspective, I thought I'd take a look at Simona, and then also the future expected units, and whether or not I feel like I would want to pull over her. So I found on their website here, someone that has, they have the breakdown of the whole kit on Convallaria.com. And I've looked at a couple of reviews on her, and I've looked at her on the tier lists, and a lot of them have, I believe, her in tier 1 or tier 2 on the tier lists. So she's like a medium mid value, but that's coming from perspective of the PvE. We'll make sure of that, and then not the whole idea. I mean, it's them as a unit as a whole, but it doesn't really take into consideration teams. As we've seen with Edda, she's not a tier 0 or a top tier unit, but she's near the top, and it's particularly because of how useful she is as a support. So we're looking at Simona. Her big thing is that she is very tanky, from what I can tell, and really good at controlling the field. And she actually looks like she'll be extremely useful in PvP, but also useful in PvE, especially on specific maps that have specific conditions or something you need to do to control the map to an extent. And this can be important on some of the tower levels. And then when we get the new tower, the Tower of Adversity, we will want to have units that are good at controlling the map based on whatever the mutations are. So taking a look at her kit, the main trait that she has is that it increases her attack and defense. And I believe that it's 5% is the default. And then attack and defense are additionally increased, and she becomes immune to this. At the start of the turn, she gains Armor of Ice. If she is dying after being attacked, she immediately gains Armor of Ice. And so it doesn't really break down Armor of Ice here. But Armor of Ice, if I'm not mistaken, is a shield that's like 60% of her health. So immediately at the start of battle, she starts with 60% of her health. And then if she becomes dying, she'll immediately get it, and it only can happen one time per turn. So that right there automatically adds to her tankiness. And then as you gain into her star levels, it improves upon that effect. And then her initial skill she starts with is an Ice Lance, which is a single target attack that causes 130% damage applied. It applies negative speed and move 1 to them, and it lasts 2 rounds. So the big thing about her being ice is she has a lot of things that lowers their speed as well as their movement. And as we've seen with some of the bosses, like the weapon trials, if you can reduce their speed, it means that you might be able to get your first turn with some of your lower speed units before the boss, which can be extremely useful in keeping units alive. And then if you use her in a PvP context, when we actually get the live PvP in the future, she'll be able to slow the other team and units down, which will be much more important than just specific having high damage. PvP it's going to be more about the utility of units versus just straight doing a lot of damage. So taking a look at her first level 1 skills, let's see. So the magic damage on Ice Blast causes 75% area damage to the first enemy in each row within a 2 to 3 area. At target, applying a negative speed 1 and move -1, it lasts 2 rounds and knocks them back 2 spaces. So there's a lot of utility in this one. One thing I like about this one is knocking them back 2 spaces, and it's a 2x3 area. So, like, that's what I'm saying with like Tower of Adversity, or the tower where you have where you're needing to beat beat it under specific mutations. One huge way that people have been beating the current ones with our low level units is through being able to like knock them off the map. And so knockback that is a 2x3 area, I mean, you can basically kill 3 people that are all on the edge, or I mean quite easily 2 if there are 2 within that 3 gap, knock them right off the edge. So right there is quite useful. But then you also have the minus of the speed and the minus of the move. I mean, if you're slowing these units down to where they can't move at all, I mean, on Tower of Adversity you can kite these units. So to me, this one so far is looking to be the better of the two. Because this one is just a straight select a location and deal 80% damage to all enemies within 1 block around the target location. So this is an AoE damage. Now, if you care about AoE damage, as we know, Barrels kind of dominates on that level. So I'm not gonna get her, if I get her, for damage, more so for utility. So on the level 1 skill, to me, Ice Blast is the one you pick every time. So looking at the level 3 skill, let's see, an instant. So it's an instant, she can do it plus another move. So Simona selects a tile with a cross-shaped range around her and charges the location, attacking all enemies along the line. She gains Warrior Frost, which increases her movement and decreases damage taken. So if I look at Warrior Frost, reduces damage taken by 30%, so that's giving into her tankiness, and increases the distance the character can move by 1 tile when on frosty tiles, so it makes her move quicker on frosty tiles. And this is an instant, so she can do a cross-shape damage around her, and then she can also do an attack, and she becomes more tanky over it. So far that's looking good. Then she has a support skill here, selects a target direction, and all allies around her gain Armor of Ice, which, if you remember, Armor of Ice is a 60% shield, and Regeneration 1, so they're actually getting some little bit of heals. It looks like to be 10% heals. And if she already has Armor of Ice, decreases NRG consumption. So if you do this right off the bat, so the start of the game, when she starts with Armor of Ice, you can reduce the cost of this from the energy perspective, but also buff up, give your entire team a shield. So this one seems extremely useful in the fact that you can get a super tanky team that all have shields, and they also get a little bit of regeneration. So overall, making your team tanky. So one of those things of the utility. To me, Ice Maid Armor would be the one you want. And potentially, if in the future, you could always use a Castalia to unlock Ice Assault. But I would definitely like that ability. So for her reaction abilities, she has... after her Armor of Ice is destroyed, so her shield's destroyed, deals magical damage to all enemies around her. So this looks to be more of a tank sided thing, and then inflicts minus move 3. So minus move 3 for a lot of units basically will make them sit still, because if you reduce move down enough, they can't move at all. So that one could be extremely useful if you're using her in a tank-like setup. You just throw her out there, and when she loses that, they can't move. But it can be risky in the fact that now she's surrounded by them. So Ice Shelter. So to be possessed minus move. When the enemy takes an initiative action, the damage received is reduced by 30%. So this looks like just a straight damage reduction. So I don't know which one I would specifically want here. But I feel like Ice Shelter might be the better one here. Just overall making her more tanky in the long run. Because the big thing about her is you can use her either on the front or the back line, depending on whether you're shielding, building up your team, or protecting her. So this one seems more like it'll keep her alive. And if I'm going to take Ice Maid Armor, she's going to be more behind my team, casting the skill to give my entire team shields. And this one should overall make her more survivable, as well as reducing the movement. So 11-7 skill, when I looked at this one, if you have Gloria, which I think most people have that started and did the re-rolling, the Knights Alliance banner is just a weaker version of what Gloria has. So if you have Gloria, you're almost always going to want to play Gloria with her. And her aura has basically the beginning part with a 10% attack and 20% defense, but it doesn't have that second additional part that Gloria adds. So I would not actually want to take this on her because they do not stack. So by default, your 11-7 skill, you're going to want to go with Freezing here. And it's a single target attack causing 80% damage, and then this one also applies move -3 for 2 rounds, so basically halting their movement. So if the target already has any move down, then they are frozen, and frozen means no action or movement, so frozen units are effectively out for 2 rounds, so that's pretty big. Now it's single target, but this can be extremely good depending if they're not immune. I'm assuming some bosses might be immune, but there might be a unit that might be someone that you can't crack, or you need to get your DPS bind. You don't want them attacking them while you're maybe hitting another higher priority target. You can use something like this to basically stop them in their tracks. I mean, even just the move 3 basically can stop most units in the track. The only ones that have higher movement are the Seekers, so overall, very good attack there. And so then level 9, you have single target attack causing 110% damage, and attack possesses -move, or in frozen when facing enemies on terrain, and the damage delta is increased by 30%. So this one subtracts move as well. It doesn't specifically state on this one that I'm looking at. I don't have access to the test server for actually looking at the translated ones in the game, so I'm kind of going off what it shows here. So I don't exactly, I believe it's if they already have a minus movement there. So it increases damage dealt by 30%. So this one's primarily, if they already have minus movement, you're doing a significant amount of damage with your ice attack. And like I said, I'm not really looking for her to be my main damage dealer. I'm looking at her to be more of a utility. So that one's not as, I mean, it looks to be pretty good damage, but it doesn't look as good of a utility. So we have Frost Strike. So general attack causes 80% magic damage against healthy enemies, and then imposes a move 1 that lasts for 1 round. So this one is basically your basic attack is putting a minus move 1, or if they already have movement, it does 100 quite significant amount of damage. So this one seems like I think you would want to go with Frost Strike just so you have another way to reduce their speed movement. Because the more you can top these on, you basically can freeze them in their tracks. I mean, she's ice. Her whole entire goal of her is to freeze enemies in their track. And then her final skill, you have the Winter Doomsday. Selects a tile with a cross-shaped range around her, and deals ice damage to all enemies within that target direction. Then she summons an ice wall, and the target tiles, if the tile is occupied, and she inflicts frozen on the target. So this one's pretty huge in the controlling. So looking into what the skill does, you can pick from I think it's like a range of 3, and you do a 3-tile cross. And what she does is she attacks that area. If there's a unit there, or the units on the side, it'll do damage to them, and then it does a 3-tile wall that you can basically use to prevent anybody from moving past, except like Seekers that have the jump capabilities. And if that wall is, if there's an enemy where that wall is going to get placed, instead inflicts frozen on them, meaning they can't move. So this one's a very big utility on not only can it freeze an enemy in the tracks, but if you have a choke point that you don't want the enemies coming through, you can place this wall up and they're not going to be able to come through it. And it can, I believe it also can be attacked, so it also can be used as a distraction to get the AI, as we all know, will just basically attack anything that you throw in front of them that's not on their side. So then, like, if you throw Gloria's staff, you can use that as a distraction. This wall can be used as a distraction as well, or depending on if there's a pathway for them to come around it, it could increase the amount of movement they need to go all the way around to attack your units. So overall, top tier utility on that one. And then the second skill here is if she's in the dying state, recovers 50% HP and 2 energy. So just a quick passive to heal you if you're dying. I mean, she is tanky, but I'm not looking at her as a complete tank, but more of a utility. I mean, her big thing is she's tanky, but she can also make your team tanky. So coming from that perspective, I think she, from a low to medium spend point, is a good character to pull for. I definitely plan to pull over Simona. I think I'm gonna be willing to go about 100 pulls deep, so go all the way to the pity on 100. But I don't know if I want to go farther than that. And a big reason for that is based on the expected banners that come up, and so far it has been following the expected banner. So it was Edda, Simona, and after Simona was Safia, and then you have August, and then Cocoa, I believe is the name. So you have 3 tier 0 units coming right after her, and she's tier 1 below, but she's going to be extremely good for PvP, especially if you're going to want to do any of the live PvP, because I know you're going to have whales out there, and if you're spending a little bit of money with someone like her, and then if you get other good PvP units, you might be able to actually compete in the PvP. I mean, you're not going to be able to beat the people that spend thousands of dollars, of course, but you at least will be competitive, especially with people that don't know what they're doing. So I think she's a good pickup for that. But then also she's going to have extreme use in Tower Adversity, and I don't think you're going to she's not the unit that you feel like you'll use in every single battle. But there'll be there to me will be battles where she'll be extremely useful to bring along. I mean, she has a knockback, so you have the ability to knock units off. You basically can freeze enemies in their tracks. So if you have some hard-hitting, heavy tanking units on the opposing side, you can pretty much stop them in their tracks while your units pick off the weaker enemies around them, and then you can finish them later. I mean, we've already kind of seen that with the current tower. I forget which boss it was, but there's a boss where they already have a low movement, and the way you beat them is you basically kite, you allow the faster AI units to come towards you, you kill them off, and then you just kite the boss around, and then you kill the boss. So something like her makes that even easier, because you just slow them in their tracks. I mean, you can pretty much stop them where they can't move at all with her skills here. So you have the knockback, you can stop them in their tracks, you can make your entire team tankier with Ice Maid armor. So I think she's easily one to pull for from a medium spending point. But, I mean, it'll be tight, and it depends on how much. If you're only getting the Battle Pass and monthly pass, I would say maybe toss like 30 to 50 pulls would be my opinion. I've so far in this game gotten really lucky, and if you look at the math, statistically you should get about on average a legendary every 40 pulls. Now, I mean, you can be extremely unlucky and go all the way to 100, and I think the math works out to about 11% of the time you won't get a legendary until 100 pulls. And then you have the odds of losing. I mean, you get the legendary, but then you can also lose the 50-50. And so, just thinking of it from that, if I'm getting about 100 pulls a month income from my moderate amount of spending, if I'm willing to toss 100 on her by this time next month, I currently have, and if you look at my game, I have right now just over 100 pulls here, and I don't know if I have any at the shop here. If I go to summons, I have 4 of these, and then we have a couple I'll get in events. So I already have about 110 pulls, and in about a month I'll probably have about another 100 pulls. So I think about that, I have about 200. So if I throw 100 on her, and in about a month from now, well, 3 weeks from now, we should get Saphia coming out. And then, so if it took 100 pulls to get her, I'll have still about 100 so left to try and go for Saphia. If I don't get Saphia, that's where I said I can buy the top-ups to get her. And then I can pretty much guarantee Saphia and then a Gust. Now where it becomes really questionable if I'm spending, if I'm extremely unlucky and I go to 180 pulls on Saphia and then 180 pulls on a Gust, then Cocoa I might not be able to get her. So I mean, I can still get completely screwed. But the odds of that happening are like, I think doing the math is like 0.5% chance to hit 180 pity twice to get them. So I don't think it's too much of a risk to throw about 100 pulls in Simona, but this is coming from a medium spend point. If you're free to play, from a meta perspective, I think she would probably be a skip, especially if you are only sitting at 100 pulls like I am right now. And I spent a little bit. I mean, I have the battle pass and that. So, and but I went for Edda too. So I got Edda in 50 pulls. I got Alexi on a lost 50-50. When I was going for Edda, I got him at like 40, and then I got her at like 50. I re-rolled until I got Gloria, Cole, and Anna and Beryl quite early into my pulls. It only took me about 100 pulls to get all 4 of them. So if you're in that situation for a free-to-play, I think she'd be a skip, just because you have an extremely good DPS in Saphia and a Gust coming out, and then Cocoa as a really top-tier tank. And from reading the kit on Cocoa, she's going to want her 5-star capability. So if you're gonna potentially want to use Cocoa in the future, you're going to need to start immediately farming her stars, because she becomes that tier 0 unit at her 5 stars capabilities. Simona, I don't think it lists the stars here, but from what I looked at, it just improves on her ice armor and when she acquires it, and the attack and defense percentages. And so they're niceties, but she does not feel like one that you need to farm your stars. So if you already are farming more stars for your other units, you don't have to worry about trying to get them for Simona. She'll be useful right off the bat. Kind of like how Edda is quite useful right off the bat. You don't need to go over the stars immediately on them. And so if you want to get stars on her, I mean, you can get them in dupes when you lose 50-50s. That's one nice thing I'm liking about this game, is all the units go into the standard pool of characters once they move off the debut banner. But yeah, that's just kind of my perspective from a medium spender. So I'd definitely be pulling for her, but she's not one that I want to pull to guarantee. I think I'm going to go to about 100 pulls. We'll kind of see where we're at that point. If I lose the 50-50, you'll see who I get too. I mean, you never know. I might get another unit that's quite useful. I have not looked at every single unit and their capabilities. So we'll just have to kind of see after 100 pulls and then go from there. But yeah, I think she'll be overall a good unit. Extreme utility. But yeah, that's just my perspective from someone who's willing to spend about $50 a month or so on the game. So we'll just see how it goes from there. Alright, thanks for watching.